Welcome everyone to this virtual forum for the two Ward 4 City Councilor candidates convened by Golden United and Leadership Golden. Just a logistical word before we start here. To keep things simple, we just have audio and video of the two candidates and of myself. This is Ron Benioff, serving as moderator. There is an opportunity to pose questions by the chat function. Those questions will be answered by the candidates after the forum. We received questions in advance of tonight's meeting, which will be the basis for the dialogue with the candidates. It's great to see such a large number of participants. It's a clear measure of how much people in Golden care about this amazing small town where we are so fortunate to live. It's especially important in this time of the coronavirus crisis that we come together to discuss the future of our community and how we can support each other. This pandemic is a reminder of the critical role that all levels of government play in protecting our way of life. I especially would like to thank the two candidates, Stacey Fowler and Bill Fisher, for your commitment to public service and to finding a way to persevere in conducting campaigns during this challenging time. We're grateful for your leadership and passion for the community. And thank you also to Leadership Golden for co-convening this forum, to the city for making a video of this event available for future viewing via GCO TV, and to Annie Albrecht, who's behind the curtain managing the Zoom controls and has been helping with all aspects of logistics and communication for this event. This is a time when many are suffering from health, economic, and mental distress, and I'd like to remind everyone of the Be Golden initiative of the City and Civic Foundation and nonprofits throughout the community, which is addressing housing, food, and business needs. A big thank you to Mayor Weinberg, the rest of the City Council and staff, the Civic Foundation, and nonprofits for all they're doing to support the community. Please check out the Be Golden initiative and consider donating if you can and tapping the resources if you need help. And please feel free to contact Golden United. Contact information's on our website, goldenunited.org, if we can be of assistance in helping you find resources or if you're aware of anybody in need. In addition, I encourage you to check out the Virtually Golden series we're holding every Tuesday and Thursday from 12 to 12:30, which offers interesting presentations on Golden history, culture, and other topics. And finally, we're glad to have you join the Golden United Housing Task Force and to learn of folks that would like to join our efforts to scope out enhanced needs for business recovery support. Now, a few words on the format for this forum. We'll start with 3-minute opening statements from the two candidates, and then we'll move into questions, switching the order of who goes first as we go. We encouraged organizations and residents throughout Ward 4 to submit questions for the candidates and received a large number of submissions. Questions came from residents, from neighborhood groups, from homeowners associations, the Chamber of Commerce, Young Professionals, Golden Votes, Leadership Golden, and Golden United. A small team reviewed the questions and consolidated them into the questions that I'll pose tonight. We've encouraged the candidates to address questions on their experiences and priorities in their opening statements. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for the opening statement, 90 seconds to reply to questions, and then I may follow up with a clarification question for which each candidate will have 30 seconds to respond. We aim to finish with closing statements, which will also be 3 minutes, and we anticipate about an hour, maybe a little longer for tonight's forum. As I noted earlier, if you have additional questions, please post them on the chat feature, and we will, or send them in through our Golden United contact information, and we'll have candidates respond to those when we're done. Bill, would you like to kick us off with your opening statement?
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate the opening and I appreciate your emphasis on helping people during this time. Again, thanks to Ron, Annie, Bob Pierce of the city for handling the Zoom and TV coverage, and special thanks to Golden United and Leadership Golden for diligently working with the city to make sure we could still hold this important conversation. And thanks also to my opponent for her willingness to offer her service for the community. After more than a year engaging fellow residents during the recent Golden mayoral race, it became clear there were a number of pressing issues that are important in facing us in Golden right now. And since announcing my candidacy, the COVID-19 pandemic has swept across the globe and into Golden and has brought a budding economic crisis with it. I'm ready to meet the challenge of helping to guide Golden through this turbulent time. And I hope to demonstrate this evening that I have the necessary local governance experience, which has prepared me to provide the vision, advocacy, leadership, and representation that we need for local government. I'm running because Golden remains a unique and wonderful hometown for all of us. The next several years are pivotal to directing and managing growth, development, crowding, in a way that is consistent with our small town values, sustainability, and character. Some of what is concerning neighbors includes growth, traffic, safety and livability, parking, the character, affordability, especially now, the success of our schools and children, diversity, the growth of the School of Mines, the new Coors property we purchased. It includes impacts from outside of Golden, including Jefferson County, tourism, highway commuters coming down our highways, the Clear Creek corridor, crime, pollution, homelessness, so much more. Passion, integrity, truly listening, performance, these are the hallmarks of my previous service on City Council, and I commit to bring these to City Hall on our behalf. Over the past year, you've all shown the increased energy, engagement, and caring about Golden that will help us get things done. It will help us to provide the managerial courage, and it will be up to us to provide the vision to allow city staff to be successful in meeting the needs of residents and preserving and enhancing Golden, implementing a direction that we set for them. And while it's unfortunate that we can't meet for live discussion, I thank each of you for taking the time to join us for this virtual conversation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Stacey, would you like to proceed with your opening statement?
Howdy, folks. And I also want to thank Golden United and Leadership Golden for putting this forum together, and Bill for you joining me tonight too as well, and Annie behind the curtain over there. I am Stacey Fowler, and some of you might know me as coach, as I am a health and fitness professional here in Golden. And some of you might know me as a small business owner with the Golden Hayride. I have lived in the village at Mountain Ridge in Golden for 24 years with my family. In fact, I'm going to have them come by. This is my husband, Joe. He's with one of our dogs, Piper, and this is Presley with our dog, Murphy. And we're going to put them up now because otherwise they're going to just bark. Not them, the dogs. Anyway. I hope that this finds all of you and your loved ones healthy. I know this virus is in unprecedented circumstances are at the top of everyone's personal thoughts right now, more so than being on the city council. You know, we're in a double whammy right now with a public health emergency and an economic emergency. But leadership is needed to help guide us out of this economic setback right now. And I have a valuable skill set that I also think can help lead within our city council. But I do have one glaring issue that separates me from Bill Fisher. I did have to cut my own bangs today, Bill. Anyway, I know you can't hear, he can't laugh with me, but I was laughing at it today, and luckily they turned out okay. I am not a politician. I have not served on city council, but I did serve as a president of the Colorado Governor's Council for Physical Fitness here in Colorado for over 10 years. I served 4 governors. I worked on local, state, and national levels on the obesity epidemic, working with governors, surgeon generals, and mayors, leading Colorado to help us become the fittest state. I do a lot of bipartisan work in my jobs, and I work for the people, never a party. I know the value of having to work across the lines. I will listen to your voice, and I will be a voice to you as your voice does matter. I also believe that we should try to work with some swift action on some things and finding solutions to the large and the big and small problems. You know, my life and my job require me to be in Golden, and I'm interacting with Golden folks on a daily basis. I'm constantly in touch with my town and the happenings. I shop, I eat, and I play in Golden. I also am actively involved. I serve on the board of Golden Women in Business, and I also serve on the Jefferson County International Women's Day Executive Board. I know my opponent has served on city council before, and I applaud him for that. And that could be a good or a bad thing. It depends on what issues are important to you in town today. But I hope to have you know that I bring some new, fresh ideas and energy to the table, and I am a problem solver. I'd like to see some diversity on the council. Right now, our gender makeup of the council is only 2 of the 6 are women. Some new perspective, fresh ideas, some geographical diversity. You know, if Bill does get elected, he lives on one of the smartest streets in Golden. Because right now, if he gets elected, 3 of the city council members all live on the same small cul-de-sac in Golden. A smart street, civic-minded, but I want to be represented in all areas of Ward 4. I've been on a listening tour of Golden, and I've listened to your concerns, and I look forward to sharing them with you later.
Thank you, Stacey. And thank you both for your opening statements. For folks who are watching, if you see me hold up a yellow card, that means 30 seconds left, and the red card means time is up. So we'll now jump into the questions, starting first with the issue that's forefront in all our minds, COVID-19. How do you each propose to help individuals and businesses recover from the impacts of COVID-19? Specifically, what actions by the city would you pursue for both immediate and long-term support for those suffering from financial and health impacts? And Stacey, we'll start with you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just, it is definitely scary times here. And I, just like many of you, as a personal trainer, I'm out of work right now myself. And we're all in that boat together. And we're gonna have to figure out as a town how we can, work with the different organizations to get some of the financial help that our town needs. I would also like to, if I get elected, create a local task force that could help prepare us for these community health emergency preparedness and getting people back on their feet. I did end up buying my mask from one of the high school kids the other day that was selling these because she needed some money to go to college. So this was my mask that I had. Every decision, that the council makes in the near future now is going to be clouded by the influence of this virus. And this is why our city council needs, thoughtfulness of how we're going to get out of it, from the Golden Chamber to the Downtown Association to the city council, to finding ways, as we did with our team efforts with Be Golden, and what the Course Tech right now is making ceramic parts. I thought that was so cool that they're making parts for Ford Motors for ventilators. I mean, these are the kind of things that is happening in Golden now. So I think that, we've got to figure out this economic stuff, the setback, figure out how we can get people back shopping, living, and working in Golden.
Thank you, Stacey. Bill? Same.
Thanks, Ron. I think we all understand that times are tough. I think we have an opportunity to keep Golden in the black with strong fiscal accountability and conservative stewardship during this time. So the first actions I think we need to be doing are to acutely manage the viral response, and also to understand what the city can be doing financially to make sure we are going to be able to weather this storm. As you may know, I was on city council in 2008, and I helped us weather the storm of the financial crisis from 2008 to 2010. I feel arguably our city and downtown businesses and merchants have thrived since that time and have done very well. And we even ended up during that time improving the city's bond rating, and we increased our financial reserves at the same time. So I think there's a number of things that we can do. I applaud the city's recent announcement and efforts responding to the financial crisis in terms of reviewing hiring freezes and looking at tax implications. I think they need to continue to do more and being able to ask our businesses what they need right now. We need to support not just local businesses, but also our residents, our senior citizens, and our students. I would urge us to consider a faster rebate for the senior citizen tax rebate in Golden. I'd like us to consider opportunities for the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, and GURA to use the funds, the legacy fund and operating funds that they have available. They've already done partial work to help with the rent, and I absolutely applaud that. Right now, the two organizations have about $2.5 million that could be first used to stabilize and help all of us keep afloat during this difficult time. And then we can look down the road as stimulus. Regarding COVID, I'm a community health nurse. If you look at my website, I have COVID-19 resources that are relevant for Golden, as well as information on what you should do if you're wearing a mask and whether it's actually going to be helpful for you. I have a background in testing, preparation, and guidelines for personal protective equipment and emergency response.
Great.
Stop there and I'll continue later.
Thank you both. So one quick follow-up question. You both talked about many dimensions of support and recovery. I think especially the importance of support to businesses that have been hurt. Can you also say a word about how would you help those people who are out of work and who are suffering in financially and not able to pay rent or pay bills and in dire straits? Stacey, we'll go with you first with this follow-up.
Well, I think we're going to have to rethink things. I, for one, think that people are not going to be able to afford things. So we're going to have to rethink everything from prices on menus, prices in stores, prices of my personal training sessions, digging down in into our pockets to help people. I also want to applaud this town because I cannot believe all the work that like Be Golden and the Golden Civic Foundation and the Golden Backpack Association and all the wonderful work that the Rocky Mountain Quilt Museum is making masks. I think there's a lot of creative ways, I agree with Bill on that we can come up with some ways to make this happen.
Thank you. Bill, for your reply?
You know, I think it starts with communication. I think it starts with communication and listening to what people need right now. And it starts with communication to offer the opportunity for people to understand the resources that Stacey's been talking about. So I've been working with Be Golden and some of the other initiatives, and what we've seen is sometimes people may not have had housing insecurity before. They may not have faced food insecurity before, and so they don't know what resources are available. So I think the fast action, and I applaud Mayor Weinberg and the Be Golden initiative for getting out there on food insecurity, and I think offering options for housing insecurity information is probably the #1 thing we can do right now to help people.
Thank you both. We'll now turn to the city budget, but it's a related question. What are your thoughts on the last city budget in general, and what would you change, but also considering that with COVID-19, city income will be cut? What portions of the budget would you prioritize for reduction, and what elements would you protect from cuts? And we're going to switch the order and have Bill go first this time.
Thank you. I think that even in the fall with the new budget, there were concerns about the fact that we were taking the financial reserves, at least temporarily, to a lower level than the city has traditionally seen. And so there's certainly, you know, it seems to me there were storm clouds on the horizon for us thinking about our budgeting process. This certainly has us needing to do more acute actions right now. And I think it involves some, you know, inside the box thinking in terms of kind of staying within our budgets. And it also includes some out of the box thinking. So I think there's an opportunity here, even as we're looking at our budget, to be able to advance initiatives for Golden. So I think we could accelerate planning of major projects for large public infrastructure. If there's another stimulus at the federal level, there's an opportunity for us to be able to get that money if we have shovel-ready projects. I think we can accelerate broadband deployment potentially in the same way, have broadband available. So and I think right now we all understand the value of broadband so that our city has that accessible to everybody of every income bracket. I think that we should reevaluate whether we add any more debt onto the ballot this year with the Heart of Golden project. And I think we need to avoid unnecessary and potentially expensive frills that we might have previously been looking at and really get down to the basics. I think we need to look at merchant local tax support in terms of grace periods, as well as kind of extending the tax sales collection periods, which the city has already started to look at. And I think there are other ways that we can stimulate the economy from some funds, such as DDA and GURA's legacy fund of a couple $1 million, while making sure we are very tight and fiscal watchdogs regarding the actual budget.
Thank you, Bill. Stacey, turning to you.
Yeah, every decision that the council makes now and in the near future, again, is going to be all influenced by this virus. And obviously, our sales tax revenue is going to take a hit. So how do we make up with that? Well, I know that we, at one point, and Bill, I think you were even involved in this, there was a hotel lodging tax that had been talked about, and it kind of got dropped. So maybe it's time to reopen that community agreement. I know the council can't put it on the ballot, but they can't put any city money towards its resources. But a coordinated group, maybe that money could be put towards helping some of the various groups downtown. I know we have the DDA doing great work already and all that, but I'm just thinking maybe that could be some extra funds going into that. And I also agree with Bill too as well. We have to avoid the frills right now. I love the Heart of Golden and the Guiding Golden and all those projects, and it's so fun to see and see how it's going to grow. But we're going to have to hit the pause button on that right now, because we got to take care of our people and take care of our community.
Thank you both. A follow-up question, starting with Bill. Can you each identify the 2 city services that you would protect from cuts, that you view as most vital and shouldn't be touched if at all possible? Bill?
I think there's a lot more than 2 vital city services. I think breaking it down like that probably doesn't do the city justice in terms of the public safety, life safety services, fire, police, water and roadways, snow plowing that we need to maintain. All of these are vital services. The city is in great financial shape. And so we are starting from a place where it's really important to make sure that we don't further degrade quality of things that might impact people. If we got rid of snow plowing, how could people get out to jobs or needed medical appointments? I think there's some basic levels of service that we can provide. And I also think that we need to make sure to maintain the vitality of our parks and recreation system. I think that's the wellness that we are all feeling right now.
Thank you. Over to you, Stacey.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. You can't cut 2 things. Golden, I mean, we have so many valuable services that we have: the fire, the police, the water, the snow plows. I also think, Parks and Rec, is huge, because wellness is what's getting people through this right now. I mean, just look at our trails. Look at the people out in Golden and enjoying all the recreation that we have. We know that's an important thing. But I think in all of our departments, we're going to have to see where we can do some cuts. Where can every department maybe cut a little bit, and that'll end up being a big cut all the way around.
Thank you both. We'll now turn to the Heart of Golden. And regardless of when the Heart of Golden project moves forward, we're interested in your thoughts on what do you see as the priorities for the Heart of Golden development on Clear Creek. And here we're not looking for an answer about how you'll listen to the community, but more what are the specific priorities that you will advocate for. And we'll start here with Stacey.
Oh, I just loved studying the Heart of Golden and the Guiding Golden. It's just been, in these last couple of days that we've been home, I've even had time to study it more. I went to one of the first presentations and put some of my sticky notes. In traveling around and listening to our Ward 4, I've heard some of the concerns, especially down by the creek. How do we take some of the stress down there off the creek? So one of the first things I would say to do is, how do we take the new property that we got over in Goosetown and maybe take some of those services and push it down into the other area, and maybe that would relieve some of the parking problems, some of the trouble that we have in the summer with all the tubers. And moving some of those services down would open up and spread out the fun in Golden a little bit more. That's what I would do, is I would take some of those plans, take some of those things, whether it's the police, the fire, city hall, an amphitheater, all those fun things that are on there, and take some of those pieces and spread it out down through Golden.
Thank you, Stacey. Bill?
I think the fundamental question about the Heart of Golden has kind of become, what should Clear Creek be about? Should it only be for tourists visiting during the summer, or should Golden residents feel comfortable using our beautiful trails, our parks, and our creek? Especially in light of financial crisis, I think it allows us the opportunity to be more introspective about how we approach this. How do we approach the timing of what we put in? How do we approach what we actually put in? And then we have to say, do we avoid the frills? Do we avoid adding the Disneyland-like elements that we may or may not need in this community? And I think I throw that out there as a legitimate question, although I know you asked us not to. I think we need to reconsider the process, and I think we need to reconsider putting it on the ballot. I think we need to think again outside the box. Maybe the Coors property building doesn't get torn down. Maybe during this COVID crisis, we offer it as an opportunity for people to be able to have beds for respite or for temporary hospital beds. I think that we need to maintain the beauty and natural part of it. We need to allow residents to be able to get down here. I think as part of the Heart of Golden, we need to center on the Golden Community Center. We need to protect the Astor House. The city is well managed. We should not be trying to sell off assets like the Astor House to the highest bidder. The Golden Community Garden isn't some factory farm or private enterprise. It's an amazing community resource, and we need to acknowledge the existing resources we have and make them available. Maybe when all this is done on behalf of residents, we should offer a free month to the Golden Community Center to help people who are struggling and welcome them back. It is such an integral part of our community. I want to make sure that our rates are not going up for Fossil Trace for residents or the community center. I want to really take care of the residents right now.
Thank you both. A follow-up question. Do you have any creative ideas about how we could fund some of the priorities that you referred to and some that are being considered in the Heart of Golden? And we'll start with Stacey.
Well, this is where you have to make those tough decisions right now because we're in the midst of a virus and a pandemic. So having all the frills and making those plans happen right now might not be what we need to be doing. Maybe we need to be focusing on what we can do. We know the building is there. So since we have the building, what can we do right now and not spend the money that we could move some things down there or spread it out? I also agree with taking things that we could do would be less fees for places all across the board so that people can start enjoying some of these things that we have, like the rec center and Fossil Trace and Splash. So that would be some of my concerns.
Thank you. Bill?
I think right now it's not about creatively adding money to the budget. I think to the extent we do that, we look at large infrastructure projects, making sure we are, again, having shovel-ready projects. If the federal government decides there's a windfall and we want to build infrastructure, Golden wants to be a part of that. We want to be ready with real projects. But ultimately, it's about not cutting and understanding and identifying the vital resources such as the Front Porch Senior Center, such as the Golden Community Center, such as the Golden Community Garden, and knowing that we need to support and allow people that access so that we can have that small town feel and small town assets that really change people's lives. And I think that is the important thing we can do. This is a 30-year project. This isn't a 6-month project. We can take our time to get it right.
Thank you both. We're now going to focus on a very important issue that many are concerned about, which is the increase of traffic on Highway 93 through Golden, which is resulting in slow travel times, noise issues, poor air quality, and negative pressure on home values. There's also concern about traffic impacts from the new 8th Street development and other similar developments. How do you propose to remedy this traffic congestion, the noise, the air quality impacts in the short term, and how would you garner support of the rest of the council? And we'll start with Bill.
I think that traffic is not just a problem for Ward 4. Obviously, we face impacts along 93, along 6, along Highway 58, but there are other highways that impact the other areas of Golden. And so I think City Council should be engaged because everybody's affected by traffic and noise and pollution. And around town along our highways, we're seeing that as we do leave the north neighborhoods in Golden, we're seeing significant traffic impacting us. We've done something in the past. We've certainly fought the Beltway to make sure that a raised toll road doesn't go above and across Mountain Ridge in our north historic neighborhoods. We've made sure that we've added sound berms and mitigation. We've attempted to improve enforcement. And ultimately, we need to do more. Things that we can work on right now to protect Mitchell Elementary in our north neighborhoods. We can do further safety, pollution, and noise mitigation through slow, safe speeds, redesigning and doing a golden light plan where we aren't waiting for that $200 million to magically appear to fix 93, but we get 93 designed so it gets out of town. We can redirect it now within the city of Golden in the right of way that was thoughtfully purchased a while back. There's a lot of very specific things we can do for traffic. I think we understand that the impacts come from not just within Golden, and we have to work with our partners, including Jefferson County, Arvada, Boulder, and surrounding regions to make sure we make sense for us and for them, and we create a win-win situation so we can work together rather than fighting each other so much.
Thank you. Stacey?
Well, the virus again has kind of put a hard stop on the noise, congestion, and parking complaints. I think the city's done a good job within its means. The bridge project over 19th and 6th is incredible, and I know there's another one planned for Heritage and down the way. But those do take money, and right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's an economic, setback. So what can we do? So looking at simple solutions that we can do. One that I just thought was just amazing as I woke up one day and there was an extra lane on Highway 93. And that was accomplished by simply restriping the road, and it solved a common sense problem. So that really helped spread out the traffic flow. And maybe that is something that we can do in Golden to ease the traffic a little bit further down at the Washington and 93 down in there. I know that my husband was president of the Village of Mountain Ridge HOA for 11 years, and he served at that time when we in our neighborhood put up the berm, which we were having construction in the neighborhood. So he was able to get the construction trucks to help take the dirt over and create a berm. And that made a really nice sound wall, if you've seen it at the Village of Mountain Ridge on the walking path going to Mitchell. So more common sense, easy fix solutions, I think are good. Parking is a premium in Golden. It's probably the most valuable space the city owns. I know the historic district has permits, but can we have a local sticker? Can we have a local sticker that we could purchase and that would put some money into the city, a sticker per car, and then maybe we could also make some dedicated spots at the creek with those stickers for locals only to also ease right now, since we can't move everybody down the creek. Can we take some dedicated spots to give people at the creek? Those are just some of the solutions I would do.
Thank you both. A follow-up question. In your responses, you focused a fair amount, which was where I focused the question as well, on Highway 93. Can you identify other regions of the ward where you're particularly concerned about traffic congestion and noise that you would prioritize for attention, starting with Bill?
Absolutely, and this has been a major discussion point among my neighbors along the 8th and 9th Street corridor, along the Clear Creek corridor, on Washington Avenue itself, and also within our 12th Street historic neighborhood, in the neighborhoods that are impacted and affected by the growth at Mines. One of the first things that I was able to get accomplished on City Council was building a parking permit system for residents. And so we've launched that, and it has now grown. I think that the parking permit system is a good idea that needs to be expanded and enhanced by changing the hours and making it more inclusive, and by increasing enforcement of the existing parking permit policies that we have.
Thank you. So a related question, still on the transport. Oh, I'm sorry, Stacey, I think it's your turn to respond. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I spent time talking to some of the people and folks in our ward in the 12th Street neighborhood, and they are impacted. They're impacted by the football games at Mines. They're impacted by the Creek people that go down there, and it's great that they do have the permit, and I agree, it does need to be extended. We got to think about, how can we make it work for them? And then we all love to enjoy the creek, so how can we make that work too? Part of the problem that I know from talking to people, though, is it's the enforcement of it. So what do we need to do to increase that enforcement? Our police and our fire department do a great job, but do we need more? Because I know it puts a strain on them as well, too. So how do we make that work for all of us, fire, police, and the neighbors?
Thank you both. So we'll now go to the next question, which is still in the transportation theme. The question is, have you read the Transportation Master Plan? And if so, what do you like in the plan? What would you change in terms of improving transportation planning and options for Golden residents? And we'll start with Stacey.
I do like the Transportation Master Plan, and I applaud the City Council and for them for putting that together, and with all the city staff as well. What I like about it, how is it takes the projects and it puts it into different tiers, because there's many different things that we want to do. You might have a bridge that costs a lot of money. Then you have restriping that doesn't cost as much. So by putting the projects into a tier process, I think that makes it very doable, that you can look and say, hey, we have a windfall this year. We got some money coming in. So we can do a bigger project. But when we don't, what projects can we do that would fit into a smaller tier? So that's the thing I really liked about the project.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
Thanks, Ron. I think that the Transportation Master Plan is a high-level document. It does have some details in it, which I really like. I like the idea and a high focus of balancing the regional and community impacts of transportation and understanding it's not just a local issue. And I think that it gets down into some of the details that are so important. I think that there are opportunities to create transit to and from areas where pedestrians want to be, like the creek, and from areas like residence homes or parking that may be more available downtown or near the Coors lot. And so I think having other mobility and alternative transit means is so critical to not just assuming everything's going to be a car and it's the only way we can get around. This goes back to the idea of prioritizing safe routes to school and other ways that we can get around town without having to get in our car. I think the 8th Street connector bridge that has been closed, and they finally got a temporary bridge open, and I do applaud the city council for doing that. It showed and demonstrated what a critical connector that is, and we need to prioritize that as much as we prioritize the roads in town because of it being such an asset for wellness, but also a transit method. I think that neighborhoods, we need to think of transit first. I actually voted against the original Clear Creek master plan because they said we can't figure out what the crowds and the traffic and the transit are going to look like. I said, no, we have to build parking and transit into any master plan, whether it's the Heart of Golden 2020, the Clear Creek master plan, or understanding the growth at Mines for continued new students coming onto campus.
Great. So one follow-up question. The master plan talks about 3 big challenges: limiting impacts of regional mobility on the quality of life for Golden, which is 1. 2 is improving connectivity within the city, including walking and biking. And 3 is enhanced convenience of transit and access to transit. Which of these 3 challenges would you give highest priority to? I'm starting with Stacey.
I would probably say number 2. I really like the community connectivity, the comfort, and the safety, because I think Golden is pretty much a walkable town. So I like the bike lanes. I'd like to see walking lanes. I'd like to see more sidewalks that connect to going somewhere. So I think the more that we take care of things inside Golden and the safer we make it, even with better crosswalks. I know that we've had task force working on the crosswalks, and we still have some work to do on that, but I'd love to see our crosswalks where people actually really look and stop and look and listen before they go crossing. So really making our town a walkable town, a bikeable town, being able to move in the town where you can shop, eat, and play.
Thank you, Bill.
I think we've been building a livable, walkable town. I think the 8th Street Connector shows that sometimes we haven't embedded that into the culture of the city. And I think a culture of sustainability and a culture of alternative transit is important to embed within the city. So when we make decisions, it's not a single crosswalk or a single bike lane. It's an overall concept of complete streets, which we have embedded within the city. It's figuring out how crosswalks work at roundabouts, not simply saying nobody's going to cross it, so we're completely safe. I think we need to find safer ways for people to get there. And ultimately, I think we need to enforce the laws and regulations we already have to make it feel and be safer for our local community and prioritizing our local community.
Thank you. We'll now touch on another very important and challenging issue for Golden, and that is housing affordability. The fact that many of those who work in Golden cannot afford to live here, and that senior citizens and young families cannot afford housing threatens the fabric of our community. What specific initiatives would you push forward to help maintain affordable housing? For example, protecting people who live in mobile home parks currently, to expand availability of housing for all income levels, could be city-supported workforce housing, for example, and improving the ability of residents to stay in their current homes, such as accessory dwelling units. So Bill, we'll start with you.
This is a tough one. Last month, people were afraid of losing their jobs and their homes and even their ability to get food. And now it's April and it's happening. We've had over 10 million people file for unemployment in the last 2 weeks alone. We need to address real insecurities that people are facing right now and feeling. And so we can't simply say, let's just look down the road for housing affordability as a concept. We need to look at kind of real opportunities for how we do that. And I want to applaud Golden United for having the Housing Accountability Task Force and addressing that. I think we can acknowledge the limited space that Golden has and not give up on supporting diversified housing. And so I think we need to support the legislature and the several bills that are working their way through the Colorado legislators to support mobile home parks and the residents who live there to improve their rights and allow them a better opportunity to live here. I think that's a great diversified housing option that we need to really emphasize right now. I think we need to also build awareness with the rest of the community of the benefits of having diversified housing within our town. Going back to limiting the traffic impacts of having people having to drive into town just to work. I think we work with the Golden Community Land Trust that can combine the idea of open space with the creation of affordable housing and workforce options. And so I think we find that there are so many groups in Golden that are already really focused on this. I think we work with them, we empower them to be part of the solution. And then the city needs to step up with money, resources, and staff to be a part of that solution too.
Thank you, Bill. Stacey?
One of the things that I, on my listening tour, found interesting is people had different ideas of what is affordable housing. And that's a question. And I think that, we want to make sure that people understand what it is. We build lots of density projects, but many of them are not affordable. I don't call $600,000, $700,000 homes affordable. We want teachers, restaurants, tradespeople to have reasonable places to live, and $1 million half plus homes are not those. We've never asked the community for their input on what kind of affordable housing they find acceptable. So that might be, I know Golden United has been working on that too, but let's find out from the community, what do they think is a kind of affordable housing that they find acceptable. I know we're rewriting our municipal codes, and a lot of that has been happening because we've had developers that have been building things, tearing down single family homes and then building 6 units on lots. So we're having a code rewrite right now with that, and I know that that's going to help, but I know there's some problems there as well. I know that from some of the people that I've talked to, I've understood that even with our code rewrite that there's some people on this task force that are developers. And I think that we don't need to have people on task force that have a conflict of interest. So why is that happening? And I think if we make some of these meetings more public, also the people can know what's going on, so that they know exactly what is going on in the community. Congestion builds with people who work in Golden, but they can't find housing and they have to drive into town and they have to park. It's growing. We have our people eating here, coming to town to eat here. We have visitors. Mines is growing. It brings more students and parents into town. And then we have the 1% growth rate. So we got to deal with that.
Thank you both. I guess a follow-up question. Would you support use of city funds once we recover economically for housing that supports needs of multiple residents? Maybe that's through a blended housing fund with private money as well, as many other communities have used. Bill, starting with you.
Thanks. I support the ideas of the Golden Community Land Trust to build and create win-win situations that partner multiple communities together, as well as our open space, to try to create opportunities for multiple shared workforce types of housing solutions. I support smaller individual opportunities to put ADUs in the right space. I think council was right to adopt the idea of ADUs. I think it's time to take a look at it to make sure it does what we thought it was going to do, to allow people to be able to age and stay in place, and not simply as an overflow for Mines housing for Mines students with pop-up ADUs. And so I think there are very specific things that we can focus on right now without having to throw a bunch of money that we may not have at it.
Thank you both. So related question. Sorry, Stacey, I apologize. I'm getting distracted.
So nice, I'm not going to interrupt you. The ADUs, which are the accessory dwelling units, or otherwise the mother-in-law apartments, we're seeing those pop up everywhere now. And I think those are not that, I think the thing that makes people so upset about them is how are they being built and how's the parking that's being there? It's not that anybody is opposing them, but are they fitting into the neighborhood, the character and the size? And is there room for people to get in and out of their driveways and their garages? So having those kind of things and aging in place and being able to rent those out are fine, but just making sure that we have someone enforcing when we have these rules and we're going to have these ADUs, who's going to follow and enforce the codes for them? Who's going to follow up and making sure they're following the rules for having their accessory dwelling unit?
Thank you both, and apologies again, Stacey. I've been jumping ahead too much looking at the next question.
No worries.
So a related question, what types of residential development do you support as priorities within the 1% growth cap? And what recent developments do you like, and which ones do you not like, do you feel are outside of the character of Golden? So starting with Stacey.
Well, this 1% growth rate, what I've been talking to people as I've been going around is that we're seeing loopholes that have been put into the 1% growth rate. So everybody was happy that we voted on it, but then all of a sudden we're seeing that developers are being able to build ahead of it. We're seeing some loopholes where they're doing things where they're not building a kitchen. So now it's called a boarding house. But I think that just making sure when we have our 1% growth rate, I don't think it's not that they don't want growth. They want smart growth. So if we're building density projects, make them affordable. Let's make them so that we're not just building density that are expensive homes, but we're building some that can be things that our teachers, our restaurants, our tradespeople, that they can live in. And let's close those loopholes so the public doesn't have that outrage, because that's why there was so much outrage over the writing of the codes, over the 1% growth rate, because we thought we had it, and then all of a sudden there was some loopholes. Let's rework that.
Thank you. Bill?
I think it's time to really put teeth into the idea of the 1% growth ordinance. And I think we do so through the rewrite of the zoning codes. Ultimately, we're reviewing that right now. And if we build in what we want to see in town, we're going to get the right type of development. If we tell developers what we want to see in town, they will follow it. What we've learned is if you try to put caps on it like the 1%, we're going to always find somebody. The boarding house is an amazing and creative and somewhat idiotic new way for us to think about loopholes. And the 1% is always going to face loopholes. So what we need to do is go into the decade of neighborhood plans that we have built, and we need to adopt those into the zoning code, not just as philosophical ideas of what we want to see. During the last downturn, we were able to actually make progress downtown to lower the heights of the downtown building so Washington Avenue would remain exactly the historic, neighborly downtown Main Street that we wanted to. You have Gateway Station, if you have to name a project that was 5 or 6 stories tall, that really doesn't fit the character of downtown. And so we needed to make changes to make sure that didn't happen again. And we made those changes. I think we need to continue to make those changes in other neighborhoods as well. I think we need to respect the property rights of owners, but then we need to facilitate thoughtful solutions. We need to get buy-in from all segments of the community, not simply slam things through. We need to listen when the community is coming to us and saying, hey, this isn't right, we need to make changes. We need to not simply say that the Planning Commission did it or somebody else did it. We need to not point fingers. We need to be part of creating the solutions for it. So I think Keep Golden Golden, I think Golden United are all working to preserve the historic small town charm, and we need to support that.
Thank you both. A follow-up question. If I could ask you each to identify one development that you think is the right type of development in Golden that addresses our needs consistent with character, and one that you think it does not fit in with Golden and that you would like to not see replicated. So we'll start with you, Stacey.
So, oh boy, this is tough. I just have problems with some of the buildings that just block so many of our views and just are a big box. So there's a lot of those. I mean, I'm all for seeing some of the, I like character when we build. I'm all for seeing, mines built on their campus, but like the one that's by Safeway, I think it probably turned out bigger than I thought it was going to be. And I just kind of feel for the neighbors and how much blockage that caused from there. I think the one that's probably a little bit more thoughtful maybe would be the one that the Hotel Eddy. I think in the apartments that are going to be built by there. I think that things that I do love seeing is the Buffalo Rose. Buffalo Rose did a great job in their renovation. So they stayed in the character. So those are some of the things I would like to see.
Thank you. Bill?
I think I mentioned the Gateway Station is something that in and of itself is development is fine, but it didn't meet the character of downtown. And so suddenly it might have been the right building, but it was dropped into the wrong place. I think that whenever Mines builds a new building and the highest corner is literally overlooking the neighborhoods, I think we've made a mistake with that planning. And I think that we need to continue to focus on the development that Mines is going to have because they fall completely outside that 1% growth ordinance. I think the Confluence Briarwood project is showing people what maximized density sounds like. It does not sound like exactly what is in the keeping and character of Golden. And so I think we need to build the zoning so that those types of projects don't get started in the first place. I think we need to head them off of the path. There's going to be a lot more of them coming down. It's not over yet, and we need to get on it now.
Thank you both. And yes, that was a tough question. So moving on to looking at the relationship with mines, which you already touched on a bit in your answer to the previous question, in what specific ways would you seek to improve and proactively manage the relationship with mines to be more of an equal partnership with the city? And what tools does the city have to ensure that we have a strong voice in our relationship and can control the impact of mines expansion on residential areas? So I'll start with you, Bill.
Boy, I really think that anticipating what growth mines is going to do is going to be really part of that. But the question is the answer. We need to engage them more. And I think one of the things we could start with is by completing the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement. So we have an understanding and a game, ground rules for how each of us is going to operate. So we can work with each other on an operational basis, and we can work with each other on a construction basis. I think that we need to be willing to ask the tough questions and dig in to ensure the best results. So I spent a lot of time going to mines community meetings and attending the updates to be aware of what they're doing. I think we could consider the idea of an ombudsman, not just for mines, but also for other large organizations that really impact Golden, and that we have to continue to have a good relationship and work with, like Coors Tech. And so I think there's an opportunity to have the city really prioritize these big relationships and say, you know what, you're an important part of the community. Let's acknowledge that. Let's work with you to understand the impacts. Let's hold them to when they say we're going to fix our parking impacts and build parking garage. Let's make sure they put enough parking in. Let's make sure they figure out traffic flow before they build it and not afterwards, which honestly is what they're trying to do right now. They're going to put 1,000 cars into a parking garage and they don't know how the traffic flow is going to work. I don't think that's an acceptable response because those are going on city streets. We have the opportunity to control and manage what goes on our city streets. I think that in the past we have worked with them. We've seen that we've been able to get the height of the stadium lowered by simply working with them and negotiating with them to reduce the impact on the neighborhood. We still need to work on event planning with mines and work closer with them to make sure that doesn't also disturb the neighborhood. But there are impacts we can have along the way and we shouldn't get discouraged.
Thank you, Bill. Stacey?
This is a balancing act. Mines is a valuable part of our city and it has a fabulous reputation. It's a fabulous university, but its footprint is growing. But it's the zoning and the land that gets folks upset. It's when they build these corner buildings in neighborhoods that block neighborhoods out. And the parking they're figuring out later. They also use our city water. They do share in street maintenance. I know staff has been negotiating with the International Governmental Agreement to help deal with that. But it's taking much more time than anyone would like to know because dealing with mines is dealing with layers of state government, not just the mine president and the board, but understanding what the legal position is between mines, it's a state institution, and Golden, a home rule city. I know Golden United has been working in a more personal aspects of the town and growing and fostering relationships. And I think there's lots of opportunities. They need our police, they need our fire, but if they keep building taller buildings, are we going to be prepared? Do we have the hook and ladder trucks to go into those buildings if they keep building them so tall? Those are things to think about, but there's lots of opportunities to work together. And I look forward to doing that with School of Mines and with Golden.
Thank you both. So one of the challenges that you both mentioned was sort of how we can exert leverage over mines. The city's been working on an intergovernmental agreement for a while now, a long time, and it's still kind of moving along, but hasn't been executed. How would you exert further leverage and influence and pressure on mines to agree to an intergovernmental agreement that has teeth in it that'll protect the city, starting with Bill?
I think we have to acknowledge that no IGA will be signed if it's not a win-win between the city and mines in the community. And so I think having the continued meetings with the affected Golden Historic Neighborhood Association, having meetings within the city and mines, and sitting down to understand how it can be beneficial for both of us so that they know what their roadmap looks like and they have the surety of understanding how their operations are going to work, knowing how much they interact with our fire, our police, our city streets crews. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of understanding how we manage events so that we can coexist together. I think there's opportunities for them to simply acknowledge where the city is. And sometimes we feel like they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And I think we need to just step up and say, hey, Golden also has needs, and sit down at the table and not get frustrated when things don't go as fast as we want. But now's the time to get the IGA done so we can move forward in a healthy relationship.
Thank you. Stacy?
What I would say with the IGA is let's get the governor's office working with us as well with our city council, and getting them to understand, this is a state institution. We are a Golden City rule. And, getting everybody together face to face to work on some of these issues. Why are these things not working? How can we work together and make this a win-win? Having face-to-face meetings with the neighborhoods that are impacted by skull and mountain mines, that they can understand those feelings that are there. Having meetings with the fire and the police. All these things need to be brought up, and I think it needs to be a whole team of people all the way from the governor's office to the historic districts to the fire and the police.
Thank you. So one of the incredible assets that we're all very fortunate to enjoy in Golden is the open space and the natural beauty that surrounds us. Council has budgeted money this year for an open space master plan. What priority actions would you advocate for in that plan to protect, improve access to, and possibly expand Golden's open space? And we'll start with you, Stacy.
Well, our open space, you can just look at it right now. It's become increasingly important during this time of quarantine. And no one is ever against open space. Golden is well situated. We have 402 acres of open space right now. And I think nature's therapy is what is saving many of us Golden people right now and giving us places to soak in. One of the things that I think is going on with open space right now is the Peaks to Plain project. This is the Jefferson County open space project that is involving that 1.75 mile long stretch at the mouth of the canyon. And right now, you might have looked out, I can actually look out my window, and 6 was closed today because during the pandemic, they were able to get a little bit more teeth into it to get that some stuff that needed to be done. But that may be one place right now, again, with this virus and the pandemic, this may be one place where we need to concentrate on the town and into Golden, and we need to come back to open space. We've got, 402 acres. Let's worry about the town of Golden right now, because we know those 402 acres are going to be there waiting for us.
Bill, turn to you.
Thanks. I think open space is something that is so integral to Golden because we are both landlocked and have a small area, and also because of the natural beauty and viewscapes with the Table Mountains and the mountain backdrop of the foothills behind us with Lookout Mountain. And so I think acknowledging that open space also means viewscapes and our ability to see the natural environment that is around us is one step that we can take to understanding open space. I think we can catalog open space, not just as a concept, but then embed it within our Parks and Rec as either a division or some other area. So we actually acknowledge it as something that exists that we have to maintain, enhance, and take care of. Can then use that to coordinate with Jefferson County open space more tightly. And we do a good job of that on projects such as North Table Mountain, but Golden doesn't necessarily acknowledge the areas within the city as open space, just as spaces that are open. Within that, we can continue to embed community parks where they make sense so that people don't have to go too far and they can have small local areas that are considered open space. Again, I think we can work with organizations like the Golden Community Land Trust. I think that we need to understand the biodiversity of the region that we have here in Golden as another way to respect and honor the plants and animals that live here in Golden, as a way to educate people of the importance of this. And we need to simply understand open space equals wellness, and it's why we moved here. We moved here for parks and trails and open space. We didn't move here because we have one less pothole in our street than maybe another community has. I think we're here for the natural environment, and we need to prioritize it at a higher level than we have.
Thank you both for your replies. A quick follow-up. Are there any specific properties that you might give priority to in terms of open space acquisition going forward? And we'll start with Stacy.
By acquisition, can you explain what you mean by the acquisition?
Either acquisition or better protecting, and this might have to be in partnership with other levels of government, other properties around the Golden area that you think are very important to protect, to keep our view shed, to keep access to trails that may not be fully protected at this time. or or people may not have full access to?
Well, I know right now in my neighborhood, we have the trail there's a trailhead in our neighborhood, and I'm in the village of Mount Ridge, and it is right now cars everywhere. I think that one of the things I would say is if we're going to build trails in the neighborhoods, we need to think about the impact it's having on the homes in the neighborhoods. So do we have any parking? There's no parking spaces. Yet if you go up there today, you would see 50 cars parked out there, which, is shocking, and it's a narrow trail. So I think things like that at our trails, if we're going to have them, I think we need to have the facilities. I think we need to have the parking. We need to have some logistics so that these aren't impacting the neighborhoods. Those are some things that I would do right now.
Thank you, Stacey. Bill?
I'd agree. I see impacts on South Table Mesa as well as the Mount Gulba trailhead in the village of Mountain Ridge. I think when we look at other areas that we might explore, I think there's two concepts. One, I think we need to look at other opportunities to spread out where people might go so that all of Jefferson County isn't trying to hit North Table or Mount Galbraith at the same time. And I think that we look north to that. I think around Golden Gate Canyon Road and north of Village of Mountain Ridge are fields that are ready to be developed if we don't find ways to protect them. So you asked specifically about spaces. I think that's one of the areas that we should really prioritize. And then we should work with Jeffco Open Space and also Boulder Open Space to continue protecting the Highway 93 corridor and the mountain backdrop to make sure that we don't have increased traffic, increased residential growth that's unmitigated going up north, and that more traffic that's going to jam down into Golden and kind of reduce our chance for a quality of life.
Thank you both. So now turning our attention to community engagement. So while Golden brims with volunteer support, we have many citizens that are very active with the city. There's an opportunity to expand engagement of residents, having more residents providing input to city leaders and boards and commissions, increasing voter participation, better integrating the Mines and Golden communities as we talked about, and other similar actions. If you're elected, what activities would you conduct to strengthen engagement across the community? Starting with you, Bill.
Ron, I think you outlined the basis for why I'm so excited to, be running for council again. There's so much energy in the community right now and over the last year. I think now's the time for us to work together to get things done. And so that's what I think really guides my concepts of community engagement. And I really think of the principles of responsiveness to resident issues. I will listen to your needs and work hard to resolve concerns and promote your ideas. I think I'm going to engage citizens with frequent communication through williamfisher.com and updating my website, which I've done with hopefully information that's relevant to Golden Knights. I've continued the Ward 4 electronic newsletter, which is so much more important now than it ever has been for us to continue to communicate. Also taking advantage of other resources like Golden Today, city resources, and encouraging the city to build the types of communication resources that they didn't used to have, looking at social media, Facebook, YouTube, Nextdoor, city newsletters, expanding the Informer to have a little bit more meat in it, looking at Guiding Golden and making sure that's a valuable and useful resource. I think ultimately community engagement means that we have long-term vision and sustainability so that people know where we're going, so that gives them an opportunity to get involved. Council has to lead with a clear and consistent positive vision for a safe and livable community, and people will get on board, and I think they will get interested in helping us to do that when they know where we're trying to go. So we have to incorporate real citizen input into the 2020 Heart of Golden Clear Creek process, for example. And so I think those are the things where if City Council starts by listening to residents first, I think we'll be pretty successful.
Thank you, Bill. Stacey?
Well, I say when this is all over, let's have a ribbon cutting ceremony with the Golden Chamber and say that Golden is open back up for business. And I think then a parade down the street celebrating on thanking all our frontline defenders, including you, Bill, from the grocery store workers to the restaurants to the healthcare professionals, and then the seniors at Golden High School and School of Mines that missed their graduations. Let's just take them right down our street. Let's play the graduation song for them, and let's throw them a parade for surviving this pandemic. And as far as things that I would like to see to connect with you, I'd love to do some walks. I love to walk. I walk the creek all the time. It's my favorite thing to do. So walking the creek, talking to people in my ward, I'd love to do that on a weekly basis. And I think Golden First Fridays, we've had those off and on. I think more importantly than ever, we need to bring these back and get these going, because we need to have things, these feel-good moments that are easy to do to make people in the community feel good, obviously with some social distancing now, and find ways to do that, but without impacting our businesses with street closures. Maybe it's in the alleys. So figuring out ways to do that so it's not so impactful in hurting our businesses when we do those kind of events, being sensitive to them.
Thank you both. I think I'll skip the follow-up for this and the next question and just move to the final question, which is along a similar theme. A silver lining to this pandemic is that it is in fact bringing us closer together and strengthening ties across the community as we recognize how important it is that we support and reach out to each other. What specific steps would you take to ensure that we, on an ongoing basis, continue to support each other and have a very close-knit community? And what actions would you take as well to lessen negative behaviors that at times crop up through online forums and in person? Starting with you, Stacey.
Well, I think we could just all be kinder to each other, and that is something that I've seen happen out of this pandemic, and we have it in us. So I've seen so much kindness in Golden. I was on the creek the other day walking, and somebody dumped their dog, and Patty from Green Paws was out chasing it, and I joined in. And I'm telling you, it was so heartwarming to see 20 people in Golden up and down the creek, saving this little puppy. I mean, that right there was enough for me to make it with my day. So those are some of the things that I think would be important to do. I think that doing some of our events again, like our First Fridays, our Golden Fine Arts Festival, chamber events, these are all things that can bind us together more than ever. So those are some of the things I would like to see happen.
Thank you, Stacey. Bill?
You talk about things we can do now. I think these are things that are going to be important to do for a long time. I don't think the impacts from COVID or the financial crisis are going to go away anytime soon. I think as a city, what we can do in terms of being on city council is build the types of transparency and trust that are the glue for the community of the fabric. And so I think the more transparent and open we are, I think that's a starting point for involving and having conversations within our community. I think that we honor our local and historic small town roots. As a small and tight-knit community, we take advantage and not push away groups that are offering support. And so we actually build mechanisms within the city to be partners with our local private enterprises and nonprofit groups that want to go ahead and get things done. Golden has a long legacy of service organizations such as the Lions Club, Golden Civic Foundation, and others stepping in, and we need to, one, stay out of their way, and two, facilitate what they're doing to help bring the community together as well. The city government cannot do it all, but we can be a facilitator for that. I think we need to have timely and accurate responses that are frequent in communication when events do happen. So we need to be out in front of the public, letting them know what's going on. I think of the Indian Gulch fire that was behind the village of Mountain Ridge, and the efforts we did to create timely, frequent updates for residents that were so critical. And we had to push the city into doing so when they wanted to do things the old way. I think we look at new ways of doing things with social media and other platforms to get the information to people as fast as possible. And then again, we need to make sure we're listening as well. So those social media platforms are excellent opportunities for people to engage. And I think that we just kind of find ways to engage with them and not at them.
Thank you both. We'll now turn to closing statements. Since Bill went first with the opening, we'll change the order, and Stacey, will have you go first with your closing statement.
Well, Bill, I want to thank you. I appreciate everything you do as a nurse, and I wish you good luck during this week, because I know these are tough times for you. Golden United and Leadership Golden, and Annie behind the curtain there, I want to thank you for this forum, and I want to thank you all that joined in today and have the opportunity to meet me and learn a little bit about me. And Ron, I want to thank you for moderating. Folks, I have the time and I have the energy to wholeheartedly serve, and I have over 24 years of relationships with Golden businesses and citizens in this town, and I bring those to the table. You know, life is a lot about relationships, and those relationships are important in working with people, and I have those, and I think that would be a good skill set to bring to the City Council. You know, may the next few weeks that you are in find you all healthy and getting back to things that we enjoy that have been put on hold in our lives. And I think we're close to getting there. So I'm with you, Golden. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I'm listening to you. I'm still on my listening tour. Please tune in. I know I couldn't hang a door hanger on your door, but I want to show my door hanger because I have my door hangers. I could wear them as an earring now. But these were my door hangers. They had all the information on it. I do have my Facebook page and my website. And you are the heart of Golden. And I ask you today for your vote for positive for change, a new perspective for Golden, one that represents the people. It's time for Stacey Fowler for the love of Golden. I love you, Golden.
Thank you, Stacey. Bill, turn to you.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks to all of you for putting this on. You know, we've had a great discussion tonight about the priorities and vision that each of us sees for Golden. I think it's important for City Council to provide a clear direction, both listening to residents and leading our community. I've tried to share detailed ideas on really practical ways we can move forward right now, especially in the face of a pandemic and the economic crisis headwinds that we are going to be dealing with. There are ways we can make Golden even better while still responding to the very urgent and real need of our residents and small businesses to survive and just stay afloat during this time. And I think we need to acknowledge that and reach out and ask them. If you do have questions or you are facing insecurities, reach out to me, reach out to your neighbors, and hopefully we are reaching out to our neighbors as well to make sure that each of us is okay. I am fortunate to have lived in this community raising a family for the past 20 years, and I'm running to continue a strong vision encompassing a shared respect for our historic small town character, a greater balance for those of us who live here with the many people who are hoping to join our community, and still supporting the very present, urgent, and real needs we're experiencing right now and for the foreseeable future. So for example, now I think is the time to engage RTD and make sure that transit works within Golden as well. I think it's going to be more important than ever. People are suggesting that with RTDs cutting back at service is the time to lay off. I think exactly is the right time to work with them to figure out what transit looks like in the future. And I think Golden can be a really integral part of that. I believe my unique experience background as a community health nurse and a private business owner, my vision and a really independence of thought that I think will benefit all of Goldenites in Ward 4 and Golden. I think it would be, unfortunate if it turns out that I was the right candidate, but I lived on the wrong street. So I urge you to understand the positions and facts and my advocacy for Golden and strength. And in this time of change and uncertainty, I can and will continue to support our neighborhood values, and I can hit the ground running on day one and get going. There's no learning curve. One thing hasn't changed since my previous service on City Council, my passion and commitment to achieving results for Ward 4 and Golden residents. And so sometimes if I, come across a little bit, kind of loud on this stuff, I'm really passionate and excited about it. And I know that we are in a great place with a lot of decisions that are really important, and it's time to dig in and get that hard work done. I'm going to get to work. Take care of yourself, be kind to each other, and let's keep working to ensure Golden remains an amazing home for all of us. If you share the principles I've outlined tonight for our community, I ask for your vote, and I encourage you to see a lot of the information that I have available on williamfisher.com, and I will continue to reach out with our community as many ways as I possibly can. Social distancing, no problem. Let's stay in touch. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you both. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Bill, for your participation in tonight's forum and your very strong commitment to public service. And I know it's difficult to participate in a forum like this where you can't actually interact and see the audience, and you're just stuck interacting with me. So appreciate your patience with the process, your very active engagement, and clear answers to the questions. A huge thank you to all the community members who joined us this evening, and likewise Apologies that we weren't able to do this in a manner that was more interactive. When we can do in-person events in the future, we'll design them so that you can ask questions directly and be more engaged directly with the candidates. If you have not already done so, feel free to add questions to the chat function or through the Golden United website where there's contact information, and we'll share those with both candidates for follow-up. And please, everyone, stay safe and healthy, and lend a helping hand to those in need, and go enjoy the wonderful moon tonight. So thank you all.